Hello everyone, this is Julia. Thank you so much for joining me on my craft room adventures. Today I have a super quick card to share with you, and it's featuring the Superstar stamp set by Lawn Fawn. I started by ink blending my background, and unfortunately I forgot to hit record on the first portion, but since you can see most of it and I will be going over a second layer, I figured it was alright. I used the snowy backdrop from Lawn Fawn, and I used shaded lilac, peacock feathers, and picked raspberry distress oxide for those little stripes that are supposed to mimic like a northern lights look. It didn't quite turn out like I envisioned, but I think it still turned out pretty cute. I'm blending the edges with the chipped sapphire distress oxide, and I'm using a tiny little blender brush to add some darkness between the different colors, just to have some definition of the different shades. Then I'm using a little bit of a bigger clean blending brush just to smooth out any color that I placed down, going back in with a second layer to intensify the color. Again with a clean brush, just going over everything. Then also intensifying the stripes and just pulling them out a little bit further than they are now. I didn't really pay attention to the bottom part because I knew that this would be covered by a grassy hill. I went over with the black soot a tiny bit around the edges, and again with the chipped sapphire just to intensify the color. I die cut the Grassy Knoll die from Hello Bluebird for my Grassy panel, and I'm also adding a tiny little shadow of the Colors of Distress Oxide onto the top of the hill, just to have a bit of a reflection there where my stargazing mouse will be sitting. Didn't quite like how this turned out. If I were to do it again, I would just add it to the very top edge. I pulled it down a bit too far, but I think it still ended up looking okay. Now I'm just blending in the other side of the edges with a little bit of black soot, just to have a nice transition there. And there we go. Now it's time to stamp my sentiment. I made sure that the oxides had some time to dry, and I'm stamping the Have a Stella Birthday sentiment from the Superstar stamp set, and I will be heat embossing it. So I'm using my little anti-static powder pouch and some Versamark ink, inking up the stamp. And stamping it down. And the embossing powder I'm using is the Ranger Superfine Embossing Powder in silver. I did realize that the Stellar, since it's such a big stamp, wasn't covered as well, so I decided to add another layer of the stamping. And now I'm just using the Ranger Embossing Powder. Just using a little brush a clean one to remove any of the stray bits of embossing powder. This brush I use exclusively just for removing embossing powder. And off to the side, my heat gun was already getting nice and hot, and I'm just running that over the panel until the powder is smooth and melted. Now it's time to assemble my card. I used a black card base and layered it with silver glitter cardstock. Then I added some adhesive to the Grassy panel. Then I realized, wait a minute, have to adhere the background first. So I just placed it on my background, just with some liquid glue. There was a little bit of overhang, so I'm just using my guillotine trimmer to chop that off. Then I'm using liquid glue all over the back of the panel, because I find that with glitter cardstock, liquid glue is the best adhesive to use. you have a little bit of wiggle room and it adheres nicely. With just other adhesive, I found that it doesn't really stick to the glitter. And that just adds a nice little sparkle to the back. And now I die cut 4 layers of the stitched rectangle frames by Lawn Fawn, also out of black cardstock. And I'm just laying that over top just to create a frame for my little stargazer scene. Now it's time to add my images. I did color those for a previous project and didn't end up using them. If you're interested, the colors I'm using for the mouse were C0, C1, and C3. And for the telescope, I used the same gray shades. I just added in the C5 for the metal parts. And I used BG49, BG13, and BG11 for the telescope. Just removing the backing sheets of the foam squares. And placing that down. There we go. And that finishes off my super quick card for today. I really love the sparkle of the silver glitter paper in the background, and even though it didn't turn out quite like the Northern Lights I had envisioned, I still think it's a cute card and it's super quick to make. It really didn't take me long at all. So thank you so very much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye!